James, welcome to the Pocket Pals podcast. Firstly, I'd like you to introduce yourself and a little bit of introduction. I'm restarting Pocket Pals, but I met you in the GG33 Academy, which discusses numerology, astrology, and the works. I think that's a really fascinating field.
Yeah.
But yeah, James, introduce
Yeah.
yourself.
So my name's James Smith. I'm from Derby, England, in the Midlands. Great place to live. I've had, what should we say, if you want to go back to a basic background, I've had a half decent upbringing. You know, we wasn't rich, we wasn't poor. Went to a normal school, had normal friends, been a normal lad. Did lad things as lads do. I've got 3 children. Not afraid to admit that I've got 2 with one woman and 1 with another woman through different experiences, which I believe that while we're here, that's mostly why we are here, for different experiences. But I am from a young age. My dad was a builder, so he had his own business. I didn't see a lot of my dad. Luckily, my mum and dad are still together, so I got to see my dad after work, but because he had his own business, it was work, and it wasn't really. It was a decision he made. He could have just gone and had a 9 to 5 job, but then I wouldn't have had the same, what should we say, upbringing as I have with somebody that's got their own business. So I've always been quite good with my hands. I'm born in the year of the monkey, so monkeys are usually pretty good at that anyway, taking things apart and putting them together. But I've had quite a few. I've been in quite a few different trades, in the building trade, you know, from groundworks to working on ladders, guttering, roofing, tarmacking, block paving, drainage, electrics, water, utilities, all that sort of stuff, really. I wouldn't say I'm well educated because, I just didn't like school. I didn't like sitting in the corner with the naughty children and being told that I'm not part of, well, not part of, but not feeling part of or being, what's the word? When I was at school, I didn't feel like I was made to feel welcome. You know, like when things were difficult at school, it was like you were frowned upon because you're the stupid kid. And that kind of put me away from the smarter end of school. But also at the end of the day as well, I'm a massive believer. I don't disrespect education at all. It just depends on the kind of education it is. But I also think that because I struggled at school so much, with understanding why we have to learn what it is that we've got to learn, when it makes a lot of it from a young age makes no sense whatsoever. You kind of struggle to adapt to somebody else's way, and I just didn't fit in. So, like from a young age, I've always felt that like I didn't fit in. So, because of that, that's always played a part in my father figure wanting my children to fit in, and not necessarily fit in with the narrative, but fit in where they feel they should fit in. Because you can fit in anywhere. There's, you know, different pieces for different puzzles fit all different places. But which piece of the puzzle are you? And it's up to you to decide which piece of the puzzle you are as to where you want to be. So, really, education-wise, wasn't the smartest kid at school when it came to doing things the school way. But being a lad, I always find a little scam at school to get out of this and get out of that. That's where my intelligence came in. I was always, should we say, I was the smartest kid on the playground, but not in the classroom. Do you know what I mean? Which kind of goes with, I've got like a bit of a saying really, that school makes smart children stupid and stupid children think they're smart. And I kind of never really fitted in either, really. I knew I was intelligent, but I didn't, like I say, fit in with what was accepted as intelligent. So I really struggled through school. So that's been a big part of my life, really trying to not dumb things down for kids, but translate complex bullshit, shall we say, into simple, enjoyable, productive skills. It's as simple as that, skills for children. So yeah, that's really where I've come, really. Like I say, I didn't fit in at school. Work, I've had plenty of jobs. I've had loads of jobs, more than I can even imagine. But I kind of feel that every job I've brought to the table, I've been an influence for people at school, at these jobs. When I look back, I was actually thinking about it earlier on. Like, I was working with a friend, and we started working for a certain company. And then after literally 6 months, I got us both the job. And then I kind of was the spare part. I felt like I was no longer needed. And I looked back and I thought to myself, what did I do wrong? Why did they not want me? And I kind of feel like it was never my purpose to be there in the first place. It was my purpose to influence my friend to come work with me, to get him the job there, because that's where he needs to be. So looking at the bigger picture and understanding that, I try and use that now on a bigger scale for life with my children, really, and kids down the park. I take my kids out all the time, especially my youngest boy. My other two are a lot more grown up now. My oldest daughter, she's 19. My oldest son, he's 18. But I've got a little boy that's 6, and like, I've probably learnt more from him in the last 6 years than I ever did at 6 years at school. Do you know what I mean? And
I was gonna say
yeah,
actually,
it's been an
what's it like to
experience.
have that big age? I was
So,
gonna say,
well,
what's
it's
that age
not
gap like
easy.
between like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy because the other two, my oldest two, shall we say, they're out doing their own thing. They've left the nest doing their thing. They live with the mum anyway, and so does the other one. But when it comes to getting them together, I mean, we went on holiday a couple of years ago. We went to Newquay, and we literally just completed Newquay from top to bottom. And although in the world that we live in today, there's influences from people that, let's say, try to badmouth you and perceive you to be a bad person, but yet, really, when they look back, they look back at all the good times that they've had, and kind of listen to all the bad information that comes in, which kind of counteracts that a little bit, and it makes it hard. Through experience. When my ex-girlfriend fell pregnant with my youngest, the first thing my daughter said to me is, "Daddy, you're not going to love us. You're going to love Arthur." And that literally broke me to the point of where, well, how do I get around that?
Mm.
Like, how do I influence, shall we say, or, well, just influence her to understand that there is no difference. I treat them all the same. Things are different. They're always going to be different, but the basic bottom moral lines are, I mean, with the other two, my oldest two, I was a lot younger. I'm 43 now. My daughter's 19. My son's 18. So, 20 years ago, I was a completely different person, and it's been part of my journey to kind of experience how things were then with the children, and how things were, back then. Bikes were bikes, whereas now we've got e-bikes, this, that, everything's electric. So it was easier to get your children
Yeah.
out to do something because it was cool to go and play football. It was cool to be on a bike. Whereas it's with my other son, it's I have to make it cool. It's not as cool. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of people out on bikes, but they're out on e-bikes. So if you're not in the e-bike crew, then from certain ages they start and think, well, he's on an e-bike, so I'm not good enough to be with them. Do you know what I mean? And like, you can see that, there's a lot of people when you go down the park. There's a group of lads on e-bikes, and there's a group of lads not on e-bikes. Do you know what I mean? So you can kind of see that, and you kind of see that they wish that they had that. But then also at the same time, I'm glad with my youngest, he's just had a normal pedal bike, and that he's always going on about, why don't we just get an electric bike, Daddy? Because then I don't have to pedal. And I'm like, yeah, but that's easy. Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. Anybody can sit in a bike and let it take them where they want to take it. You have to do a little bit of pedaling because that's how e-bikes work. But mainly, if it's fully supercharged, you only have to do a little bit of pedaling and the rest is done for you. So I've always kept him back to the basics from what I knew from the other two. I used to take him down the BMX track all the time. We used to do laps down the track, take him to all these different, not skate parks all over the country or anything like that, but just local. You know, there's Elverston, there's Chaddesden, there's Sinfin, Shelton Lock, all them sort of different parks and that with pump tracks and things like that. And I've always been into bikes myself, so I've implemented that into my life because I enjoy it. But I've also put that into their life to show them that it can be fun, but it can also be a good form of exercise, basic exercise. Hence the reason I've not got him an e-bike, because I want him to understand that when we go out and he gets back after, I mean, the first time I took my youngest lad on a bike ride, he had one of them balance bikes with no pedals, no stabilizers and all that. And I can't stress enough, most people have had them for the kids now. I couldn't believe it at the time when they came out, because I thought to myself, I thought the bike was the best it could ever be. And then some clever guy took the pedals off it and it became something else. Do you know what I mean? And I can't stress enough the amount of people I see down the park with a normal bike with stabilizers on. I get that, but that's old and done with. Do you know what I mean? When really, my youngest lad, he had a balance bike literally at the age of like being able to stand up for his second birthday. And, you know, he used to sit on it. We used to watch a bit of YouTube together, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, like I used to take him out on that, and really it was about getting him out to understand what he's actually capable of. And I still remind him now. We used to record everything on Strava. I used to leave, because Strava's like a Facebook app, so to speak, but just for cycling and exercising, swim and so forth.
Sure.
But you could put photos on it, you can post stuff, you can talk, you can chat, all that sort of scenario. And I kind of found that I wasn't really bothered about what everybody thought I was doing, but it was should we say, an outlet for me to be able to look back on in 4 years' time and go, hey, oh, can you remember when we did this? Can you remember when we did that? And to this day, I always say this to any kid that's out on a bike when he goes, oh, you know, my mum wants me to go to the shop on my bike, and I'm like, it's down the road, mate. Like this guy here, when he was 2 years old on his balance bike, I've got it on Strava. I wish I could get it and show you just like quick time, but it'd take a bit of doing. But my claim to fame on his
Or you
balance
could get a
bike,
clip
he was
sort of.
still, yeah, he was nearly 3. I'll send you a picture of it so you could post it on. He was 2, nearly 3. Don't get me wrong. It was a stronger end of 2, but it was still 2. And he did 17 miles on a balance bike. 17.
What do you think this generation has lost?
We've lost the patience to grow. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you know, like watching kids. I used to spend, as a kid on a mountain bike, I used to spend hours and hours and hours, just as Ronaldo has done playing football to be at the best that he was, just wheeling a bike because I wanted to be good at wheeling. It's as simple as that. And, you know, it all started off with doing one white line on the road. Do you know what I mean? And then in the car park doing 5 car parking spaces and then doing the car park. And I think that a lot of children are, because we live in a faster world now, everything's instant. So they don't know what it's like to, I mean, you've only got to look, it takes just as long now to get a McDonald's to deliver to your door by Uber. Back in our day, it used to take half an hour to download a 2-minute song. Do you know what I mean? So that's where things have changed. Things are so much faster, And the millennials and the newer generation all think faster, but what they must understand is that the body still moves at the same pace. Your body can't grow as fast as the mind. You can think about getting in a car, driving it, going to the shop, doing your shopping, picking your mum, this and that and the other. You can think that in 2 minutes flat. But the process of actually getting a license, doing some tests, passing your tests, getting a car, getting a job, getting a car, getting car insurance, you know, that thought process is then dragged out on a massive scale. And I think it scares kids because, well, not scares kids, it just puts kids off because they don't understand that it's a process. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. And I think the younger generation, you know, have been not spoiled. They've not been spoiled because it's our fault that we spoil them by giving this technology, you know, that can order a McDonald's and have it delivered to the door in 10 minutes rather than go outside and learn how to wheelie, because that's not going to take 10 minutes. And I think the process, I think it's important that children understand that, yeah, you can get food delivered straight away, but if you actually want to learn something and be good at it, it takes time. It's as simple as that. Same as cooking. Yeah, you can order an Uber and it'll be here in 5 minutes. But if you actually want to cook a decent meal, I've always say this to my little boy: you can cook good food really badly, and you can cook bad food really well. So, you know, and that's a process, and I try and implement that into life because we do a lot of cooking together. He knows how long it takes to make a sandwich. So when he goes, "Dad, can I have a sandwich?" He don't come in 2 minutes later and go, "Is it ready yet?" Because it isn't, because I'm putting my heart and soul into that, because I want him to enjoy it. And he knows the process, because I eat healthy anyway. And it's not, you know, it's not just a case of get some cheese, get some ham, put some bread together, and there you go and done. That to me is not a sandwich. You can get that through Uber. Do you know what I mean? Delivered $1.99. Whereas a sandwich is priceless when it comes to putting it together yourself. You know, just the simple things like, you know, going to the grocery store, you go and you're hand picking your fruit and your veg for a start. You're checking it, you're feeling it. You know, I've took him so many times. Literally, I have him every other weekend. And, you know, at some points, sometimes we go in the car because it's quicker and it's more convenient. But if there's nothing, if I'm not in a big rush, we will go on the bus, because it's also good to be able to stand there and actually wait for a bus and just talk. You know, not when's the bus coming, distracting with not when the bus is coming, but let's talk about something until the bus comes. Do you know what I mean? So I think that process of slowing, distracting children from a prolonged process that then becomes what feels more denser and quicker because it's been enjoyed by making it enjoyable. And I think that's what school misses, because it's just one shoe fits everybody and there's no time, you know, to teach everybody individually. And that's why I think it's important that you know, just with the simple basics, really, you know, with like I say, the sandwich method, I always say to him, life's like a sandwich. It's built up in layers and it can taste as good as you want to taste it. Do you know what I mean? You can make a bad sandwich, you can make a good sandwich. There's nothing wrong with making a bad sandwich. I've made so much food. In fact, last night, if I got it out the bin, I would show you how to roast potatoes. They were literally black charcoal. Do you know what I mean? But that's because I prepped them, put them in the oven with the chicken, and forgot to take them out before I put the chicken on. So the taters got as long as the chicken. That was in there for 6 hours. So they were properly roasted. But I still put them on the plate and made it funny, because he was like, "I'm not eating that, Daddy." I was like, "I don't blame you, mate. I don't blame you. But what I am showing you is that it doesn't matter how old you are, you still make mistakes. And you learn from it every time." And I think it's important that kids,
That's really good.
you know, like understand how to make food. I think that's so key at the minute, because at the minute we've got things like HelloFresh, which comes in a box. You know, to me, if it comes in a box, it's not food. I've taught that my little boy from a young age. You know, fresh food grows out the ground, doesn't come in a box, doesn't come out the freezer. And I think it's important, like I say, you know, implementing these little things steadily but surely to show him, like the bike ride. The night before we made food. All I did was make some rice with some vegetables, chucked it all in, all the accessories that you would get from a grocery store, bit of rice just to bulk it up, and took some wraps with us. And then we stopped literally halfway, had some snacks, and then carried on. And he then, because I mean, at the age of 2, nearly 3, you know, I'm not ashamed to say, I let him use knives under my guidance. Do you know what I mean? Cutting, chopping, and he can do that now perfectly fine on his own. Do you know what I mean? Everybody's got their own, like, well, you shouldn't do it till this age and you shouldn't do it till that age. But I think every child's different. He's smart. He's not stupid. And I've got more time for him now as well. Going back to the other 2 children, I worked a lot, whereas now I don't work as much. So I've got more time. I've got more time to think. And I think that's another problem. Everybody's too rushed off the feet, wanting this and wanting that to give to the children. One thing I have learned, that it doesn't matter what you give your children, they can still be unhappy. So I've kind of got the mindset of, well, if I can give you everything and make you unhappy, I may as well give you nothing, because that'll make you unhappy as well. And I think time and skills are priceless. They might not think it from a young age. They don't know any different. They don't know any different. I can't stress that enough. When people say, how did you get him to do that bike ride? And it's like, well, he's not 18 and been sat on the sofa for the last 5 years. And I'm like, come on, mate, we're going out on a bike ride. Because it would have just put him off straight away. Just the thought of getting on a bike. But because he was so young, he doesn't know any different. He doesn't know that bike ride, 9 times out of 10, any other child would not have made that bike ride or even, you know, attempted it. He didn't know how far he was going. To him, it was just a day out. Do you know what I mean? On a bike, having fun through the parks. I literally took him on my bike route, which is 16 miles. But because I was with him and we went on a couple of tracks, it ended up being a little bit more. But going back to like children, and I think the biggest problem they've got, they don't understand that good things come to those who wait. And that doesn't mean sitting around doing nothing. What that means is moving forward. Whilst you're waiting to get better, it comes. And before you know it, you are better. And I think I've learnt that more from my youngest son than the other 2. Because, like I say, I got him at a really young age, like they do at school, to educate him my way. What I think he needs to be educated with is a life path 3. So he's good at communication. Like when I took my oldest boy and my youngest boy both fishing, whilst they were sat behind me having a conversation about Minecraft, you literally like, I mean, I'm both of them children, my children, but if I was sat there and just took myself away from the fact that they are my children and I know how old they are, you couldn't really tell the difference between my 16-year-old and my 6-year-old. Do you know what I mean? Because my oldest lad's probably like me, his vocabulary is not great, but my youngest boy, because he's a communicator, he's naturally skilled at picking that up. And I think communication, I've implemented that in to showing him different ways on how to grow, really, and have the patience. You know, like he thinks, you know, from when you're at school, you learn to read and write and talk, but they're not the only 3 ways that you can communicate. You know, there's text, there's typing, there's hand signals, there's braille, there's sign language. Do you know what I mean? There's and as a communicator, I think it's really important that I show him these skills from a young age and implement them into exercise, good health, all that sort of thing. So it's all just one big ball of what I think is going to be good for him and what he actually enjoys. I try, you know, like another thing as well, like when we do make food, because we make it together, you usually find he won't leave any because he knows what's in there now. Whereas if you give him a big bowl of salad
Absolutely.
He'll be like, "What's that, Daddy? What's this, Daddy?" And he'll question it because he doesn't know. Whereas when you've actually built that meal together, he knows exactly what's in there. And you've given him a choice. You're like, "So do you want eggs in it, mate?" "Yeah, no, I do want eggs in it." "Okay, so we put the eggs in." "Beetroots. Do you want beetroots, mate?" "Yeah." So like, he might not want it all together, but because he's watching it individually being built up layer after layer like a sandwich, it then becomes something that he's comfortable with eating. And I think that's a massive thing for children. If you give most children, if you give them a salad, they don't want to know because there's all these different colours in there and it confuses them. Whereas you go to McDonald's, it's bread, burger, lettuce. The only colour that's in it's red sauce. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yellow.
like
So
that's
yeah.
what
Yeah.
yellow, yeah. And I think that's really what I've learned from the age difference. With my other two, I worked away. So when I came back, I was a weekend dad. So I didn't have the time to prep food, but we'd still go for a carvery. Because
Mm.
although a carvery is no different from a school meal, except it's 5 times the price, it's
Yeah.
vegetables. It might be tinned. It's not the best. It's literally prison food with a price on it. Do you know what I mean? It's no different. But the mindset of at least eating vegetables is there, and they do eat healthy. The other two children do eat healthy. If you same as any child, you give them sweets or celery, they're going to want sweets. But what
Yeah,
I
of course.
have learned if it's not in the house, you can't eat it. If you don't buy it, you can't eat it. It's all right moaning that your kids eat too much chocolate, but why do they eat too much chocolate? I was brought up in the 80s. Yeah. I was born in 80. So I was a test dummy, literally, for sweets. Do you know what I mean? Push pops, fizzy cola bottles, you name it, the lot. And my mum, she was in the war era where everything was rationed out and this and that and the other. So she went with that, and she's a Taurus as well, so she loves the food. And we was kind of given, we wasn't short of food, shall we say? Do you know what I mean? Because my mum went without, so she didn't want us to go without. And if it didn't matter if it was sweets, crisps, chocolate, biscuits, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And like, I kind of feel like I've learnt from my attention span back in the day would have been classed as ADHD, and I would have been on tablets like some of these younger children are now. But I put that down to sugar. I don't put it
Yeah.
down to the child not being able to concentrate. It's because they're pumped full of sugar, and you are what you eat. There's plenty of
Mm.
cartoons out there. I think it's Peter Rabbit 2, where one of the rabbits has a load of jelly beans and then just starts jumping around all crazy and that. And I'm like, that's why you don't have sweets, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's as simple as that. Look what it does to Peter Rabbit's cousin. Do you know what I mean? And like, because I've brought my son up on such good food from a young age, he does not know no different. Do you know what I mean? It's great to go out and get a pub meal every now and again. I'm not going to knock that, because there's nothing better than going out and having a nice pub meal that you've not had to cook yourself. Do you know what I mean? But also, it's a treat.
Mhm.
Like back in the day, a treat for us was McDonald's, whereas now it's a necessity. Kids
Mm.
can't go without it. They need a McDonald's every week, whereas we would be
Yeah.
gobsmacked if we even had the chance of it. Do you know what I mean? And like, because I've seen the change come in from, especially for myself, where we was just not allowed to, but my mum brought a lot of junk food, so we ate it. And then she complained that we'd ate all the biscuits or the
Mm.
sweets or the crisps or the chocolate. And it's like, well, it's not there for show, is it? It's there to eat. Do you know what I mean? And because
No.
of that, I've learned how that affected me as a child looking back on it. And don't get me wrong, like, I don't give him sweets. I won't give him sweets. I'll give him chocolate, because chocolate's grown. Sweets aren't grown. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So, he does get treats. He doesn't go with that. He's not fully vegan and all this and that and the other. He's allowed meat. He can have sausage. Young little boy still needs to try all these little things, but the basic foundation of food, there's nothing wrong with making a salad and getting sausages, chopping them up, frying them, and chucking them in with a salad, rather than having bacon, egg, sausage, and
Yeah.
beans with a bit of salad at the side. They're not going to eat the salad on the side. Do you know what I mean? They're going to eat the bacon, egg, sausage, and beans. It's as simple as that. So, like, I've really tried to implement this to my son, and because he's a communicator, I'm really hoping in the future that he can maybe do something like this, because he's really good at communication. I'm hoping I'm in the middle of teaching him to type, so because pens and paper's done with, that's Fred Flintstone stuff as far as I'm concerned. We've
I
got the
don't,
internet.
you know, yeah, I don't know if I agree with that. I think there's a lot to do, like when you're writing and stuff, there's actually something quite therapeutic about it. I don't think, obviously, it's
Oh,
not being used as
absolutely,
much, like typing is quite important.
absolutely. I'm not.
I'm a
I
software
don't
developer,
dispute
but
that.
I think,
I don't that at all, at all. But
yeah,
what I'm saying is that we have a phone that we can type on, and you
mm,
try and get a kid to write a letter to his pen
mm,
friend. Where are all the pen friends nowadays? You don't even hear about pen friends because they're done. Do you know what I mean? Like, I totally agree with you. Like, therapeutically, and the process of thinking and pen to
also quick,
paper and all that, is
yeah, well,
is
quick
really
note taking as
important.
well. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
mhm,
Yeah. But on a whole, because digital's coming, it's, everybody's got notes in the notebook. That's why they're called notebooks. Do you know what I mean? A digital notebook rather than, my missus, she's old school. There's more post-its notes downstairs stuck on the walls than there's stamps in the Royal Mail. You know what I mean? They're everywhere because that's how she is. But what she
amazing.
doesn't understand is if you keep them all together, you know where they are. But yeah, like, I'm not saying that writing's finished and done with, but when you look at ebooks, these Kindles, all that sort of thing, like you just said, like, it's better to sit down and actually read a book physically than it is digitally. But unfortunately, the digital way's taking over. Because if your kid wants the latest book, you ain't got to go into town on a Sunday. It's at 7 o'clock in the morning to get to the nearest shop to get the book. You can just download it and it's there in the morning. It's easy. But I must admit, from a young age, when he was born as a baby, I swore by books. I drew him pictures, I'd read him books.
Mm,
He didn't even know who he was, where he was, or anything. He was in nappies. And that was the time where I read him books because I felt that was important, just to talk to him for a start, like talk to the soul. And, through books, school books, and I did that from a really young age, and now he's actually at school. He's being sent home with books, and when you actually read the books that school send home, I can't stress enough. All the good for is keeping you warm. Literally, all the good for is keeping you warm. They want putting on the fire and burning, because whoever came up with half of these books, they're just garbage.
right.
They're either about bullying or being argumentative. I mean, you've only got to look at Peppa Pig. I mean, come on. If you listen to Peppa Pig for 5 minutes, it's like listening to your two children. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah, when it comes to going books, I totally agree with you. They should be a part of children's life, and I think because we're going digital so fast, I think young
Mm,
parents, and not young parents, new parents and young parents should think, instead of just think outside the box. When you've got a newborn baby and he's 6 months old and he doesn't know his head from his arse, sit and read him a book. He doesn't know what you're talking about, but he sees
mm,
you reading
mm.
a book to him. Then that becomes part of his life, like you say, and that's where it can be therapeutic and taking notes and understanding that books do actually exist. Like, it's quite funny learning from, like, just for an example, it's funny how children see things the way they do. I used to eat a lot of chicken. I used to go to the butchers and buy chicken. I used to prep it all and put it in the freezer. And because we always used to read books together and that, we used to, from a really young age, we used to talk about where animals live and what they eat and all this and that and the other. And I said, where do chickens live, mate? And he went, in the freezer. In the freezer. That's what he actually said. He thought chickens actually live in the freezer. You know what I mean? That's how mad it is. But that's because of what he sees. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I can see where you're coming from, Dad. But unfortunately, it's
Yeah.
up to us as parents to try and keep that a little
What?
bit. Do you know what I mean? Try and keep the
Yeah.
book scenario in the picture from a young age.
Yeah. Well, what I realized is that from like because I've got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, that when we're physically
Yeah,
reading books as well, it's like a nice bonding experience as well. Whereas if you kind
yeah,
of throw up a
absolutely.
YouTube or TV, which is okay as well, if you're
Yeah,
busy, you kind of need to keep them from the distract.
yeah,
But at the same
entertain.
time, like when they're on the toilet or just sitting there, something that
Yeah,
I like doing. It's just but I kind of want to because we mentioned it a few times, but I do want to mention it as well. Like you spoke about him being an effective communicator because he's a 3 life path, and that kind of
yeah,
moves on to the more kind of esoteric side of like kind of where we
yeah,
met and
the
stuff.
metaphysical side
Um,
of things, really.
and yeah, I'd like you to
Um,
talk about numerology and GG33
no.
Academy. Um, can you elaborate on numerology and how you got to numerology? Like what led you towards it?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So the way I got to numerology, really, my mum was literally a human calculator. I can remember growing up. She used to work at Derby University, and she used to complain about the tills when they brought a till system in, where you had to ring each thing in individually. She said she used to be able to add it up quicker than she could put it in, and she used to chant the times tables to me at school because I wasn't the smartest at reading and writing, but I was pretty good with numbers. I've always been pretty good with numbers. Numbers are in your life every single day. You can't get through the day without seeing numbers or using numbers. So I'm blessed, really, that my mum did that, and thankful for it. As much as she crammed food down her neck, she also the Brussels that we didn't want. She also crammed the numbers down my neck as well. Which turns out we're living in an era where that's now more important than the Brussels. So
Hmm.
like I say, I've always been good with numbers, and numbers have always been a part of my life where you see different numbers. You wonder why you see double-digit numbers, you see mirrored numbers, etc., etc. So, when I was 21, I was looking to buy a house. I was with my ex-partner at the time. We had Jaylee, my oldest daughter. I think we'd not got her then. We was looking to buy a house. We was looking to because she lived in a bedsitter at the time, so I was looking to buy a house. We was going to rent a flat, but it just made sense to buy a house. So we bought the house, and just before we bought the house, my mum lived in the town centre, so she used to go in every single day and get a pile of leaflets from the estate agents of new houses to look at and properties. So we used to go around at night and at the weekends looking at all these different properties. And I live in Chaddersden at the minute in Derby. As we were looking at a house that side of Chaddersden and coming to this side of Chaddersden, we came past the house I'm living in now. And I didn't look at the house. I just saw the for sale sign. It was Boxall Brown and Jones at the time. I think they're still going. I went to school with the guy whose dad was Boxall. His name was Mark, I think, Mark Boxall. So that caught my eye first. I saw that and I was like, "Oh, Mum, what's this place?" And she went, "Oh, it's in the no pile." And I was like, "What do you mean it's in the no pile?" She's like, "It's in the no pile." Let's have a look. I looked at the postcode. The first thing I saw, I didn't even look at the picture, I just looked at the postcode. The first thing I saw was DE21 4JS. Now, doesn't mean a lot to most people, but to me, I read that as Delta Echo for James Smith. Because my initials, I'm James Smith, so the
Right.
initials were JS. I was 21 at the time. of purchasing the house. So Delta Echo 21 4JS. And I thought, that's weird. I had a look at it. We looked at it. It was a bit of a faff to get the house. We got the house eventually. Lived here for a bit. Still live here now. My ex-partner moved out. Blah, 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 all the usual rigmarole that comes with that. But when it comes to numerology, that kind of always stuck with me. And it kind of made me feel like I was pulled towards that house. And I always wonder why, because I drove past loads of houses that were for sale and didn't go, oh, what's this one? What's that one? Do you know what I mean? It was just this one particular house. I was like, well, what's this one? And that's where we ended up. So, like, literally 10 years down the line, studying numerology, etc., from off YouTube, really, self-taught, listening to everybody's read. A lot of people read and regurgitate. Some people actually have studied and regurgitate, and everybody's got their own opinion. You know, like years and years ago, there was, you know, all your angel numbers, and people would say different things about different numbers. So although you were learning probably not the correct way, you was learning a lot of different perspectives. So anyway, it turns out I'm a 33 life path, and I live at 33.
And
So
by
now that
and by
makes
30,
sense
sorry,
why
really
I
quickly,
got
by 30,
drawn to this. Yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, really quickly. So by 33 life path, sorry, just for the listeners, what do you mean
Yeah.
by 33 life path?
So I went through a psychedelic experience, shall we say. The lady that I met that gave me the mushrooms for the psychedelic experience, she asked me she asked me my date of birth, and she said, oh, you're a 33 life path. And I was like, right, so what does that mean? She went, I don't know. And I was like, right, so you've asked me my birthday, you've worked out that I'm a 33 life path, but you don't know what it means. So I was like, okay, sleeves up, into YouTube, let's go. So I found out that basically, long story short, 33 Life Path is the master teacher and influence. And looking back, I've always been an influence, whether it's good or bad. Do you know what I mean? So as a 33 Life Path, not knowing at the time when I bought the house, now I know why I got pulled to this address. Not just because of the postcode, but because of the number it is as well. Because there was a few houses for sale on this street at the time, but I got pulled to this one. And that's because it's my frequency. So, you know, diving into that a little bit, like I've kind of learned a lot of different things about the 33 life path. You know, we can dive deeper on that another time if you want to. But the basics of it are really that the main reason I came to this house and bought this house is because the house pulled me to this frequency, because we're on the same frequency. It's like it's like when you go into town when you're younger for a few drinks with your mates, if you hear the music that you like pumping out of that club, you go to that club. But that's on a physical level. On a metaphysical level, I couldn't understand why I was drawn to this house at the time, but now I do, because it's all metaphysical and you can't see it. It's kind of like, well, it's imprinted energy, really. It's like, it's part, a 33 life path really is also, it's like part of your trump card. That's the best way I can explain it to anybody that knows nothing about numerology. Is if you want to know about numerology, and the reason why you would want to know about numerology is because you want to know what your trump card is and what you can play. Everybody's got their own individual trump card. You've got different life paths, different energies. It's numerology is as big as the universe. And not only was I wasn't interested so much in numerology and numbers just because it's a subject, but because I knew about the Fibonacci code. Now, I've always known that all languages have been created, bar mathematics. Mathematics was discovered, not created. So in my head, this is where being the dumbass at school now came into partnership with being out of school and thinking outside the box and being able to free think as much as I want and understanding things for myself, and picking up on things really fast. I'm a fast learner when something makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of, that's what drew me into that, really, is a long story short. And going back to my children, because I've studied it now on and off, like more deeply in the last 5 years, as best as I can, because life takes over as it does, and really practicing it, Dev. That's where it comes in. It's all right studying all these books and knowing about all this information, but that doesn't lie with me. I have to go out there and go, hey, you know, when somebody starts talking to me down the pot, because I'm a 33 life path as well, I usually find people are really drawn to me because I vibrate at a higher vibration. It's the highest vibe. I've found that 33 life paths vibrate at the highest vibration. So we attract good and bad. Do you know what I mean? And when, you know, whether people are good or bad, what the intentions are is irrelevant to me, but I still draw them people across. And even if it's just talking twaddle or talking about something that's genuinely interesting, if they come to me to just talk because they feel drawn to me to talk about whatever it is, I can't help but ask what the birthday is, because that's now free practice for me. It's free practice. and what I've learned, I can kind of put out there. Now, just while I'm thinking about it as well, I've got a Where's Wally calendar that somebody brought me in 2010, right? And I've still got it in my kitchen downstairs on the wall. Every time somebody new comes round that I know to my house, I'll go, oh, put your name on your date of birth in there for me. And I never understood that for 10 years. Well, what, we're 24 now. So for 14 years, I never understood why I was doing that. But now I can look back at that and I can think, that's literally like my own personal guide, because I know all my friends, I understand numerology, and I can understand why my friends are like that. You know, like I've got a mate, no names mentioned, but I've got a friend, he's really emotional, but he's got a massive ego. Do you know what I mean? And he's born on the 29th. So that's where his emotions come in, because 11 is the number of emotion
11.
and 9 is the ego. When you look at the number 9, it's top heavy, which is the brain end. So he's going to have a massive ego and maybe be unbalanced as well, because, you know, when you look at the 9, it's top heavy with one stem sticking in the ground, so to speak. So I kind of try and relate numbers as though they were stick people. I know that's going to sound stupid, but there's plenty of other things that do as well. And I'll look at the number, you know, like the number 6, pregnant. Do you know what I mean? The number of family.
Family, yeah.
When you add 1, 2, and 3 all up together, you get 6, and you need male energy, female energy to create the child, which is the third energy. And then when you add them all together, you get the family energy. So the 6, to me, represents the family. Do you know what I mean? Family time, because there's 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, and 24 hours in a day, and all of them reduced to 6. So yeah, numerology, it's like, it's kind of always been there, but I've never really understood it. But now I'm not saying it's something that you'll never understand, because whilst you think one thing, anything can happen. But the basics of understanding, you know, like going to the GG33 Academy, when I came across that, all right, I only signed up to the basic academy, but when I was on that basic academy, I kind of felt relieved to have come across it, because it made me feel, do you know what? I'm not going fucking mad. I'm not going mad. The things I'm thinking, the things I have been thinking, it's all here now, confirmation on a website, and there's a whole world of people confirming it. Do you know what I mean? Not to mention Gary himself. I've watched all his stuff, all his short clips. I can't praise, if I could, I'd shake his hand if he was here now. I couldn't praise him enough because that guy's kicked the biggest fucking domino in numerology history. And it's only the beginning. It's literally the beginning. That guy's got it on tap. He's got the mouth, he's got the influence, he's got the intelligence, and he's got the crew,
Mm.
and fair play to him. I might not agree with how he puts everything across, but I get why he does it like that, because you have to make a fucking noise for people to listen nowadays. It's as simple as that. So going back to the numerology side of
Yeah.
things, the house, like it was always there, and I've always been learning it. But just lately, like I say, the last 5 years, I've kind of took it a lot more serious and thought about it a lot more about not understanding it, but how to now use it and understand my son's strengths. Like, so for instance, he's a life path 3. He's born on the 24th. So that's a 6. All my children, my daughter, she's born on the 6th. My son's born on the 6th. And my youngest son is born on the 24th. They're all 6s. Do you know what I mean? As a partial energy. My oldest son is born 2006. In January the 6th. He's a 6 life path, born on the 6th. So he's going to be a very homely, family time person. Do you know what I mean? And trying to get him out there to do shit, I can understand now why it's hard to, because he likes being at home. Do you know what I mean? I never really
Mm.
understood, like, why don't you want to
Mm.
come out and do this? Like, he will do. But as a young kid, it was fairly easy to do. But as he got to a teenager, I get that he wants to go out with his friends and that, but he also spends a lot of time at home, and I can understand why now. Because he likes being around family, and it's as simple as that. My daughter, she's a 1 life path, born on the 6th. My youngest son, he's a 3 life path, born on the 24th. He's born in the year of the rooster. Now, that made
Right.
total sense how he demolished that 17-mile bike ride that I was talking about earlier when he was 2 years old. Because the strongest part of a rooster is his legs. It's as simple as that. Do you know what I mean? But he's also a Gemini. Now, so Gary talks about how Chinese astrology and Western astrology are 2 completely different things, which they are. But when you intertwine the 2 together, he's not just a rooster, he's a Gemini rooster. Now, when I found
They
out
kind
that,
of add to puzzles and pieces then.
yeah, absolutely. Like, at first, when I realised he was a rooster, I was like, that's all good, but roosters can't fly. So he's going to have weak arms. But then I found that Gemini rules the arms, and most Geminis are strong armed. So this guy can fly. Do you know what I mean? He's a strong rooster. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's got the best of both worlds, really. And he's got the mindset of the Gemini as well, the 2, which that's another thing as well. He was very close as well. If you remember looking in the academy, and you probably back me up on this, Dev, he said that one of the worst times to be born is on the 25th of May as a life path 9, because you've got that
Yeah.
intelligent energy. So check this out. I'm a monkey. Both my parents are tigers. My dad is a Gemini,
Oh, and
life path 9, born, you know when? The 25th of May. So whilst Gary can sit there and say that that's like, he's got his own opinion about that, like, I can vouch that if you can have that 9 and 7 energy worked well and a good upbringing. Now, my dad was a single child, so all the attention was on him. It was a lot more focused because he's a Gemini. Gemini's sometimes hard to focus for them because they've got 2 minds and there's always a battle. But he had a good upbringing. A lot of children don't have a stable upbringing. I don't think sometimes whether a good upbringing and a stable upbringing are 2 different things. Because a good upbringing could mean you've had everything. A bad upbringing can mean you've had nothing, but you can still have a stable upbringing whether you've got everything or got nothing. And I believe that my dad had a
Yes.
really stable upbringing, and that's why, being a life path 9, Tiger, born on the 25th of May, like, we've never really seen eye to eye. And like, I learnt that through Gary, really. Like, his ego, his intelligence. I do tell him, I say to him all the time, like, look after your mind, Dad, you know, like, because you're a Gemini, the twin mind thing and all that sort of thing. But yeah, so flicking back to my son, he's a 3 life path. Because he's a 3 life path, so Gemini's is the 3rd sign in Western astrology. Geminis are really good at communication. So that just logically to me means if there's a 3 life path and Gemini is the 3rd sign, then he's going to be good at communication because he's a Gemini and is a 3 life path. So he's kind of got the double amplification of that. But also because he's born on the 24th. I look at the 2. Like Gary said, there is no life path 2. Like, if that's what Gary says, that's what Gary says. That's like what he's learned. That's what he's teaching. But I'm a strong believer, and I'd love to have the chance to discuss this with him, that 2 is a life path in the sense that just because there's no real meaning behind it, like being a good communicator, being an influencer, being a family person, if you look at the number 2, the first thing when I look at the number 2 in the English language is it looks like a swan. A swan is the most beautiful bird on the lake. So 2 life paths just have to be nice. Just be nice, be beautiful, do nice things, wear nice things, enjoy the beautiful things in life. Just be beautiful, and that's it. And B is the second letter of the alphabet. So just beauty. That just resonates with me. I'm not sure if Gary's said this or not. I don't know if he has, but that's my personal opinion on life paths too, is there's no actual, like, you have to go out there and get that bag, or you have to go out there and order people around or influence or communicate. Just enjoy life. Just be beautiful. Do you know what I mean? So, and also being a 24, he's got the 4 there as well. So he'll also need to have a little bit of his own law and order and work hard. Why
Structure.
work hard? Because green in numerology reduces to 4, and Santa's elves do all his fucking donkey work, don't they? So that tells me,
Yeah.
because the elves are dressed in green, and the Oompa Loompas for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, they was all dressed in green as well, whether they've got orange skin or not. Do you know what I mean? They was all dressed in green. They're the workers. Do you know what I mean? So it's common sense that green and the number 4 and the number 4 is related to hard work. And I learnt that it's also to do with law and order through Gary. Do you know what I mean? Which kind of makes sense. When you dive deeper on it, do you know what I mean? But I think understanding that, because there's no point in trying to get my son to communicate with his friends all the time if, for instance, as you'll know, Dev, if he's a life past 7, because he's a loner. He
Yeah.
wants to be on
With
his
you.
own. It's loner energy. Now, my dad, being born on the 25th, has done everything on his own. He had his own business. He's got an ego, but he's also, because he was born on the 25th, he's done everything on his own. Do you know what I mean? He likes his own company. He can't understand why I like to be around other people. He never will, because he was born on the 7th. And he will never understand any of this because he's also a 9 life path with a massive fucking ego, and you can't tell somebody any different with that 9-7 energy. It's just like what he knows, and he sticks to, and that's it. And there's no changing that. But because I know that, I accept that and kind of think, well, it's up to you. It's there on a plate. If you want to take it, take it. If you don't, don't. But going back to my son, yeah, it's made a massive difference. It's helped me realise with him being a rooster, he's going to have strong legs. He's going to attack
Okay.
short bursts. If you go on YouTube and type in rooster attacking people, they just fucking like this, quick attacks. not for a long time, but short bursts. And Geminis are very much like that as well, because they don't have a massive concentration span. So it's okay when he goes, Daddy, I've had enough of that now, after 2 minutes, because that's how he is. But also, because we've built sandwiches in the past, he knows that although it's good to have a short burst at something, I think it's very useful for him to have a short burst at something, because he knows whether he likes it or not. And if I see that he likes it, I then implement the sandwich method of like, well, you do like this. You've told me you like this. You want to learn more about it. And I can't just teach you like that. Because that's what a rooster wants to know straight away. He wants to know everything straight away, same as a Gemini. I need to know now, because it's quick. The Gemini sign is an air sign. Air moves fast. So they want to know everything now and quick. Whereas because I've taught him the sandwich method, he knows that you can't just build a sandwich like that. Sometimes there's a process. So because I've done that from such a young age and I understand all of this, I feel, and I really hope, that I've got this right for him to understand later on in life that it's okay to attack all these different things. And then when you find something that you're interested in, then build a sandwich, go in the long haul. Do you know what I mean? So I think the metaphysical side of things, I talk to his soul. I can't stress this to enough to parents. When the children are asleep, talk to your children while they're asleep. Tell them that you love them while you're asleep, because although when they're in their human form and awake and not really listening to what you're saying and taking it on board from a human perspective, when you talk to them when they're asleep and tell them how much you love them, and even if you've told them off or you've overreacted about something, tell them that you're sorry when they're asleep. Tell them that you're sorry when they're asleep, because their higher self, that's not always conscious in this realm, can then speak to the higher self, can speak to the conscious self and kind of put the conscious self at ease metaphysically without really doing anything, because it's in the sleep. And going to talking about whilst sleeping, I can't stress enough to anybody that a new parent or a young parent, affirmations are key. Like, so I do a little bit of, I call it wordology because it's just easy to say, but information keeps you in formation. 442, just like at school. The information they give you is designed to keep you in formation. So affirmations, in my mind, have formation, and it's up to you what formation you want. And believe you me, if you can, well, with not all of us, but there's a lot of us that are conscious of when COVID came, and in the shops there was stay away from everybody, keep 2 meters, wear your mask. That was relentless, just there, relentless as an affirmation, and everybody literally was scared to death of everybody. You know what I mean? So I kind of seen what subliminal messaging does, subliminal programming, affirmations, repetition, live across the world. Everybody saw it, but there's only them. There's plenty of us that are conscious enough to use
a lot of Hindu,
affirmations.
just really quickly, a lot of like in like Hindu and Buddhist traditions, they just use mantras, and actually everyone does have a mantra, even during COVID, like keep 2 meters away,
Yeah,
keep distance, lockdown, those kind of things. But the same thing here, like and actually I think you've hit on a point here where you know before you fall asleep, you're going to have thoughts anyway. It's better to have
yeah,
positive thoughts or
absolutely.
affirmations,
Yeah,
or
definitely.
because you can say I'm not good enough, and have all those like I call it wasa wasa talk, before you
Yeah, no,
fall asleep,
absolutely,
and then
Dave.
you'll
Yeah.
internalize it and believe it. So yeah,
Yeah, no, that's right,
yeah.
and
So
it's not just about children either. They work for you, so there's nothing wrong with having an affirmation that says, "I am healthy, I am wealthy, I'm loved, I'm happy, I'm at peace, I'm abundant. Thank you for my eyes. Thank you for my teeth. Thank you for my arms. All this good shit put together in affirmations. Most of us can afford a wireless speaker for 30 quid and stick that in the middle of the house and play that at night over and over and over again. All right, you might get a few adverts from YouTube, but it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? But on the whole,
The affirmation advertising.
yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely, absolutely. So if you can afford it, subscribe to the full YouTube thing where you don't get the adverts. But yeah, like I've from a very young age, I knew about affirmations, and not so much with my other two children because I worked away, but certainly with Arthur, affirmations. Every time he stays over, he even asks, "Daddy, can I have my affirmations?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course you can, mate. Why wouldn't you?" You know what I mean? Because I know. I'm like, I'm not wishing his life away because I can't wait to enjoy every minute of it with him. But I'm looking forward to seeing him in 20 years' time to see all these little tweaks to society that I've implemented myself to help build him into the person that he wants to be. He will have a choice whether he wants to be like, I'll never forget we were sat in traffic and he said to me, what was his words? I can't remember the exact word he said, but it was absolutely hilarious. And he was like, I don't like sitting in traffic, Daddy. I can't remember what he said now, but there was a word he used. I can't remember what the word was, but it was hilarious. And it made me realise that he's impatient and doesn't want to sit in traffic. And I was like, so what are you going to do about it? And he was like, I'm going to buy a helicopter. And I was like, good. So now when I talk to him all the time, if we go to the shop and there's a bit of traffic or something like that, and I go, there'll be none of this, mate, when you're older, will there? In that gold helicopter that you're going to buy, do you know what I mean? Just to give him that belief, because, you know, like, we're shot down at school. You know, you're put in a box and taught to learn certain things. I mean, I went to my son's school the other day. It was bright outside and they've got all the blinds down. And I thought, well, maybe they've got the blinds down because they don't want the sun coming into the classroom. But then I've been there when it's been pissing it down for the rest of the year and the blinds are still down. They don't want the children looking outside. There's more information outside the classroom than there is in the classroom, and it's more interesting as well. So I can't stress enough, like, the metaphysical side, the numerology is metaphysical in a physical form. You know, when you look at cymatics and colours and all them sort of things, they're all used, you know, when you send, like, I try to explain to my son over and over again that when I talk to him, that the word hello, I don't like to say hello because it's a low vibrational word, but if I go hi, the word hi doesn't come out of my mouth and travel across to him and he hears hi. What happens is a vibration comes out of my voice box that's vibrating. It travels to your ear, which translates it into a word that we've come to understand. And now you know I'm saying hi, which used to make me wonder, when birds cheep and cows moo, what do we sound like to them? Because we are vibrating. We forget that when we talk, our words actually aren't coming out of our mouth for everyone to hear. We're, as a human, we're tuned into that frequency to hear the words, but cows don't know what good morning means or goodbye. They just hear a vibration. So as a bird cheeps and a cow moos, what do we sound like? That's always picked my brains, and we'll never actually know the answer to that because it's just a vibration. Like a bird when it cheeps, that is a vibration that we pick up as a pitched noise, as a vibration. So what do we sound like without words? Does that make sense? A bit of food for thought.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, it was it's something that I noticed as well whenever you're abroad and just listening to, you know, let's say you go to Japan and just listen to people speaking Japanese, you can kind of get the
Yeah.
gist of what they're saying just on the tones. and the body language and stuff,
Yeah,
and I can see that. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
very
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
fascinating.
Well,
Yeah,
that brings me that
yeah.
brings me to the times when I've looked on YouTube and you type in unspoken language, and there's like there's people that live in the
Mm,
forest, and there's people that whistle. They use whistling to communicate. They don't even use words. They use sounds. They're like click, all that sort of
mhm.
stuff. Do you know what I mean? And some of them whistle,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
in
They use different.
itself is a
Yeah,
language, just through frequency. Yeah, it's clever, really. It's really clever. But
yeah.
like I say, going back to languages and stuff like
So,
that,
so,
like
so
numbers is the universal language. Everywhere you go, anywhere in the world, 1 + 1 is 1. It's as simple as that. So that's why I kind of went down the path of wanting to understand numerology by joining the academy. And I can't stress enough to anybody, going on to GG33's academy to get the basics, but the real good, juicy information is in his spaces. When, like, I listened to Wise Cat, I've literally finished it last week listening to a 22-hour podcast that he did
wow.
on a 22 day. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, that was really interesting. There was a lot of stuff on there that wasn't interesting, but when somebody has been talking for 22 hours, information gets slipped that shouldn't be slipped, shall we say? Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure Gary can vouch for that. Sometimes he has to bite his tongue and kind of like, oh, hang on, I might let on something there, because it's easy in conversation when you've got a point to say and a point to prove, especially like Gary has, to get carried away with his NDA information, shall we say, his gold, silver, and bronze, or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it. So yeah, no, it's all interesting. Numerology. If anybody that is out there listening to these podcasts and stuff like that, I can't stress enough the basics of education. Teach your children what you think they should be learning, and the best way of finding out what they should be learning is through numerology. There's no point trying to teach a frog to run, because they hop. It's as simple as
Mm,
that. So there's no point trying to teach somebody that's going to be really good at communicating to do something completely the opposite and stay in and be on your own, so to speak. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think numerology, I mean, it's coming into fruition anyway. It's picking up. People like Gary kicking dominoes. It's not just Gary, but like he said, like he's made it cool, should we say. I like to say, like, there's plenty of
mm.
people out there that have been talking about numerology, but this guy's made it cool. And that's as simple as that. And that's what people want.
Yeah,
People don't want to study something that's not cool. Because if you start talking to your mates about numerology and they're like, what the fucking hell are you on about, mate? Do you know what I mean? Like, but because it's cool, they're interested. So yeah, all
yeah.
them new
He's
parents.
made it fascinating. He's made
Yeah,
it
no, he has,
fascinating. Like, and
absolutely.
he's
And I
linked.
think
What's
I
what's
think that's more his niche than anything else.
Yeah. Well, what's good about how he's done it is he's linked it with evidence, and that's where
Yeah,
it can
no,
get really
absolutely.
fascinating to link it with evidence and kind of
Yeah,
taking the scientific approach,
yeah.
in a way,
He's
because it's
used.
not always precise.
That's right. He's put it like, I could get my calendar out now and say this guy here that's born on this day is like that because he's born on the so and so, but nobody knows who my mates are. Everybody knows who Michael
Sure.
Jordan is. Everybody knows who Hulk Hogan was. Everybody knows all these superstars. So everybody that knows the superstars can kind of relate to what Gary's saying. And that's where he's done his homework with the superstars. I get that. But he also had to practice on people he didn't know as well. So although I can relate a lot of my mates'
Mm.
birthdays with their energies by looking at my calendar and understanding, yeah, they are like that, because I can learn from that. I can also speak to people that I've not spoke to before, don't even know, get the birthday, and have pretty much an idea exactly what they're like just by the time they were born, which is crazy. It's absolutely fucking crazy when you think about it, really, because you can spend a whole lifetime not knowing who you are as a
Uh,
person, but Gary will know you in and out and
so
what you're
go
going to
on
be
then,
good at.
James. To wrap this up,
Yeah,
let's let's see if you can kind of guess what kind of life path I am. I wonder. I'm sure I've told you, but let's see if you can give it a good guess.
So what's your date of
I'm gonna
birth?
be. I'm being cheeky.
Yeah, no, so
I'm not
what's
gonna
so
tell you. So based on my
right?
personality,
Okay.
what you see me.
Well, I'd like to say, I mean, I've done most of the talking, but I'd like to say, because you've
I
invited me
know.
onto your podcast, that you're going to be good at communication. So if you're not a life path 3, you could be possibly a Gemini. Um, I'd like to guess that you're a life path 3. Just for the simple fact that you've started to communicate on podcasts, and I think that's maybe your kind of niche. I don't know. Or you're just feeling into it. You know, you could be a one life path that's not good at communicating, but doesn't care and is just going to keep going at it
Uh-huh.
until he gets it right. You know, there's different ways that you can look at it.
Stubborn.
But I
I'll,
must admit,
I'll give you a bit more
it's
information about myself. I'll give you a bit more.
okay.
I'll give you a bit more information of myself, and you'll be able to suss it out. Because actually, I know why you thought that because of just this little section of myself, and I kind of.
Yeah, yeah,
So
cool.
I am a landlord. I'm a landlord.
Right,
Uh, Ever since I was a kid, my concern has always been about legacy. Um,
right.
I'm quite empathetic, but I'm quite stubborn.
Yeah.
And as you can see, I didn't communicate much until basically the times are right. So there's a few bits and pieces which kind of match to my energy. So sorry, I'm being really cheeky here, but I thought why not?
Yeah,
Let's
no,
have some
so
fun.
maybe if you like, usually if people that want a legacy want to build something. So if you want to leave a legacy behind you,
Yeah.
you have to build something to leave behind you. So instantly, that just tells me you must be a 22.
There you go. Yeah. 22
Oh,
life path.
really?
Very clear. Yeah. And
There we go. You see, so yeah, it does work. So it does work.
and
But
yeah,
obviously, you gave me information in your
I fed
life
you
to
information.
set your life path, but
Hmm.
also if you weren't doing that sort of work in your life, if you gave me a date of birth, I would recommend that you need, like, them that don't build, and them that do build as a 22 life path. I mean, my brother was born on the 22nd. He stays at home, he sits inside,
Hmm.
he does his own thing, he keeps himself to himself. He's never really built anything. If I'm honest with you, he does a lot of drifting
Hmm.
online. It's his
What's
own
his date
little
of birth?
bubble. His date of birth, he's an 84, so he's a rat. He's born on the 22nd, and I'm not sure if it's July or June. I'm not sure of his life path, but he's a 22. He's born on the 22nd, so he's got the potential to build. Do you know what I mean? But he's not built shit, really. And they're on the same shelf, build and not build. So if you was a 22 life path and not building, then you that shows me that you are a 22 life path, but you're just doing the opposite to what you could do. Somebody that's building everything could also not build. They're the same thing. Building and not building are on the same shelf. So yeah, fair play to you, Dev. You're up there,
Yeah,
mate. You're an old soul. You know what I mean? You're an old
I
soul.
know. We've been here.
So
We've been
yeah.
here too
So
many
if
lives.
you don't mind me asking, what day was you born on?
So I was
Like
born
the
2nd of
date?
January 1990, the year of the snake.
Right. Okay.
2nd
So
of
the
January,
second
yeah.
of January. Yeah. So yeah, that's good as well. So yeah, the second, like, yeah, you probably like nice things as well. That's where that beauty comes in. I'm not saying that you want
Yeah.
the best of everything, but like it's like you're probably the sort of guy, especially being a builder, that you probably got that mindset of like, well, if I'm going to do podcasting, I'm going to buy myself a set of nice headphones because I'm in this for the long haul. Do you know what I mean? Rather than go out and buy a cheap set, you would rather go out and spend good money straight away on some decent headphones, that's going to last. And if if they're not comfortable after time, they're not comfortable. But you're probably more the sort of person that's going to buy the headphones for 90 quid than 9 quid off Amazon. Do you know what I mean? Just because it's got a good reading, because
Mm.
you like the nice things, and the nice things are going to serve you well in your legacy.
Yeah, I think Sort of. So when it comes to kind of like the to the 11, I'm not sure. Kind of, obviously, this is sort of gate kept, isn't it? So, but with the two, it's
Yeah,
more. I really want like leaving a legacy behind. I think like yourself as well. I would
yeah,
really like to kind of set stuff that will help people in the long run, basically. So yeah.
yeah,
All right,
sure,
James.
yeah, of
I
course.
will.
Ah,
We'll leave it now because I've got to look after the kids.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, thank
yeah.
you. Thank you for.
No, right, definitely.
All right, all right,
All right, Dad. I'll
all
leave you
right. See you
to it,
around.
mate. Peace.